How's it going, everyone? You're listening to Free Kick, the official AFLW fantasy podcast. Got the whole gang together again today to chat about how round 3 went. Jono, good seeing you at the game earlier today. How are you going?
Yeah, pretty good, thanks. It was nice and wet to keep some of those scores down, but I think it was exciting to see Collingwood really challenging Nam and taking it up to them.
Yeah, it was a good game to watch. I left for the last quarter, left a bit early because I wanted to get home and watch Freo get slammed. So I did miss an exciting last quarter of that game, but instead I got to watch Freo break records. Record-breaking game. Absolutely loved to watch it. Largest margin, 100 points. Huge. And also breaking the record for the largest AFLW score, not 24 hours after it was last broken, with the score of 114. Really impressive performance by Freo to allow North Melbourne to break both of those records.
Wow, Freo is such a good side.
Well,
Very entertaining watch.
If I may, Freo kicked 14 points. I mean, isn't that a winning score? As far as I can tell as a Hawthorn fan, that's a winning score.
That game was rough.
Yes, it was. I did make it through the whole game, but my heart was slightly broken. What about you, Liam? How was your weekend?
Well, it started off well, which if you've been following on the Bombers men's side, it has been about 10 weeks of misery, usually starting before the weekend has even commenced. I haven't even got to Saturday and somehow I've been let down. So it's nice to actually have a win on a Friday night. That and the fact that suddenly, the league's Irish players have gone, yep, we're the theme this week. First week it was rookies. Next week it was premiums. This week, Niamh McLaughlin, superstar. Ronnie Fitzpatrick, best on ground in the final game. It's just beautiful to watch. Blaine Bogue with 4 goals. It's funny how Blaine Bogue kicked 4 goals, but yet somehow Fremantle won by 100 points. It's impressive.
I didn't say what part of the record they were on. And what about you, Will? Essendon almost had a win over a very dominant-looking... Geelong almost had a win over a very dominant-looking Sydney.
That is true, but I enjoyed the game nonetheless. It was a win-win because either I got to see my Cats win or absolute favourite player, Brenna Tarrant, gets a win in her 50th game. 50th game win for Brenna. Got to see her after the game. Met her family as well, which was lovely. But my fantasy round was very unfortunate. For the people who remember last season, I got Bree Davied, and we'll talk about that a little bit later.
Oh, that's a scary correlation there. Well, why don't we start off with you then, Will, with how you went this week?
Yeah, so at the sort of halfway point at Saturday night, I was feeling pretty comfortable. I was on about 800 points with 5 players and a captain to go. And then I ended up scoring 1,169, which puts me at a weekly rank of 8,408. So I've ended up dropping about 1,800 ranks to be outside the top 2,000. And it wasn't really because I did anything particularly wrong. I just happened to have a week where none of my players, my more unique players, tended to fire. And then, of course, as I mentioned before, I got Bree Davied. So my good call was bringing in Ash Woodland. We talked about it before, but she's playing a very good role. Fits into my forward line very well, so happy with that one. My bad call, I'd say Taylor Harris only scoring a 53, but I mean, it wasn't dreadful. I didn't really have anything that particularly stood out, but my blind side, Jas Garner's ankle injury, she ended up scoring a 51 and was, essentially taken out of the game midway through the second quarter. So if she had played the full game, I was probably looking at another, 120 plus score. I would have been up around where most of the rest of the people on this this podcast were, but unfortunately that injury has sunk me down quite a bit. So it's possibly going to mean a forced trade this week and also meant a significant drop in rank. So very unfortunate there.
Yes, that was devastating to watch. He looked so sore and went straight off. So we'll definitely be discussing that more. Jono?
Yeah, so a little bit less of a good round than last week, but still overall fairly fine. 1,331, which left me with a weekly ranking of 1,470, and my rank basically stayed the same. I was 416 last week, I'm 431 now, so Pretty much the same. I think the good call was I brought in some good rookies. I was very happy with Laura Stone with her 68 and Tessa Boyd's 80. So I think overall very happy with those two. My bad call, I traded out of Cambridge McCormick, who ended up going 107 and being the second highest scoring defender of the round. That was rough. That was very rough. What blindsided me the most, really, was that pretty much my plans this week went exactly as I wanted them to. I brought Beck Ott onto the field for nearly a 60. All the players that I wanted on field did well. It's just that I traded out of better situations. So really frustrating round overall. I need to be aiming higher from my players because apparently they're capable of so much higher.
Yeah, that was pretty funny watching that score and being like, oh, Jono, that was the wrong trade to do. But that's okay. Still doing very well overall. I'm up next, 1365 this week, so just a little bit ahead of you. Total rank just outside the top 1,000, which is not bad given I started outside the 65,000, 6,500. I was real bad.
Scoring 4,000 points a week at the moment then.
Yes, but I've had some good improvement, which I'm hoping to continue. Good call was chucking the C on the high scoring player in the round. Very happy with my last minute decision to take it off Noffy and to put it on Riddell. That made for the only silver lining watching that Freo game. I was just team Riddell the whole time. And then also my third time rookie roulette paid off. I decided if your rookie rucks aren't firing, why not bring in a third one for the third week in a row? Brought on Ellie Simmons for one of the only 2 games I didn't watch, so had to rely on Jono's intel for why she did so well, but glad to see some of the rucks finally making me some cash. Bad call was wrench on field over O'Shea. It's one of those dilemmas, always the one that you put on the bench scores bigger. But my blindside was LL Heads really looking elite in that midfield there. So she was dominating the scoring for most of that game. And I believe she finished with something like an 80-something.
87 with 3 frees against.
Yeah, so very impressive performance. Glad to have her in my side. And that leaves Liam, top scorer on the podcast for the week.
I love that this is an exact reversal of the ranks last week. So I scored 1,429, which put me at a weekly rank of 148. It now means that I've moved up to rank 478, which is a massive jump from last week. I also would like it known that my call right at the end of the on-air recording on Friday was to say to John, I hope you do well, but I hope you do slightly less well than me. Good, thanks, bye. And then ended the recording completely, and it came perfectly true. So I loved that. My good call was holding Matilda Schultz last week, scoring 137. One of the most dominant performances you'll see. I think she realised about halfway through the first quarter that Taylor Gregory could not hang with her whatsoever. Every ruck contest was like a two-handed shove to the chest. Yep, I'm grabbing it. I'm going to palm someone off and then kick it 60 metres. Maybe not 60, but like it was just a complete domination. And then kicking beautiful goals from the boundary line twice, just a freak effort. Bad call. It was Wrench on field versus O'Shea on the bench. I always seem to pick the wrong one. I did not copy this from Mel. I swear to God, I had exactly...
You've literally written the exact same
Word
thing.
for word.
Words and all.
On the run sheet, I may have copied and pasted directly, but it was going to be my bad call too, because it's cost me points again. My rookies keep failing, and I keep picking the wrong rookies to put on field. And then my blind side was Georgia Patrikios starting across half forward. It was something that we talked about after teams had come out with Liv Vesely and Hannah Stewart coming in, but then it also comes out that she's nursing a little bit of an ankle injury, really proppy. She had 2 into a bench stints per quarter, so her time on ground was really low. Limped to a 50. I think she was on 18 at 3/4 time and then got a +8 to after the siren had gone to get to 50. And I was happy with that. So like that was really, really tough. I will also say it's not my, when I traded out Serene Watson, I was like, okay, maybe just get a 60 in a tough matchup, but to have it be that Watson scored what did she end up scoring for the week? It was a 40 something.
35 in the end. Yeah.
35.
She's on my field.
Yeah, so to go from that to Beck Ott and to gain points, I was very, very happy with. Particularly given I was also looking at which of Watson, McLaughlin, or McCormick or Conan was the player to trade out, and I thankfully picked the right one.
Well, it wasn't McCormick.
Yeah, well, I'm glad I didn't do that. Cambridge McCormick, I joked in the preseason that she's the next coming of Tani Evans. It would appear that that is exactly who she is, because she got thrown forward in the last quarter.
Excellent.
Yes, well.
Thank you.
Over to our watch and wait scoreboard. Will, whip us through this one.
Yeah, so we have once again got a new top coach. VPROB W, Kevin G's team, which scored a massive 1455 this week. So 4,406 points to be leading overall. That was a big score, but it was almost 100 points less than this week's top scorer, Bray G, whose North Goats scored 1551. That is an enormous score in a week where there are a few decent players getting injured as well, so well done to Bray. In terms of your top 100 overall ranking, you need to have gotten a round score of 1,365, which is well down from the over 1,500 of last week. So for your total points, you need 4,240 to be in there. And Kevin G, congratulations, you're in our free kick league, and you are now ranked first overall in there as well, which is clearly better than ranking first overall across the whole thing. So well done, Kevin.
Unfortunately, we aren't donating a Hilux to the winner of our league.
No, but a third of the top 100 is in the free kick league. So very happy with that.
Keep up the good work. So, for our hot topics this week, we're going to start off with a Sweet 16, which is exciting. First one of the season. So, looking at our defenders, we've actually done a bit of work here. We've all put down our top defenders and aligned them towards a top 5+1 that we can discuss. So, here we've got first place, Tilly Lucas-Rod. Second place, Elizabeth Georgia-Stathis. Full consensus on those two. Shelley Heath in third. Charlie Thomas, Cambridge McCormick. And in sixth place, Jenna Richardson. So, interestingly, this deviates a little bit from who we currently see as the top 6 ranked defenders, with a notable one being Emma Carney's currently ranked third in the competition off her one-game performance of 84. Will, she's someone that you've put in your top 5+1 who's not currently coming through in the aligned top. What are you seeing in Emma Carney?
I mean, it's Emma Carney. Emma Carney just scores well. It's what she does. I think that the biggest risk for Emma Carney will always be injury/game management, but provided she stays fit and plays the majority of the games, I think she is a player that can quite easily average over 70.
She did only have 60% time on ground in that game too, for an 84. Now, it was a complete pantsing of epic proportions.
Though it is North Melbourne, so there certainly could be more complete pantsies coming
We
along.
expect more.
I don't know if we're going to see anyone play competitively against North Melbourne this season.
Yeah, I'm actually rather happy with how Geelong went in that first week now, based on what's happened in the last couple of weeks, I'll be honest.
They did a great job, and the weather was definitely a benefit. They played the conditions far better than North did.
But yeah, this North Melbourne team, they are as imposing as you can get, and I think there's plenty of cheap chippy chippies around for North Melbourne defenders. Emma Carney loves to get up the field to get involved in the play, so I think she's definitely a player that can push into that top 6. Again, it all comes down to how they manage her, because if North are flying like this, there's no reason why they wouldn't just say, you know what, you can just sort of spend 50% of the time on the bench because we don't need you and we'll nurse you through to the finals. That's probably the biggest worry, but when she's on field, Carney scores well.
Yeah. We have always said she's the consistency queen, expecting somewhere around those 60s to 70s. Putting up an 84 already puts her in good stead to stay near the top. But if she were to drop down to that kind of historic average of 60 to 70, she will probably drop out of our top 5. So I guess it depends on how long she stays on the field. Another one here, Bree Conan, who's currently ranked 7th in the competition and has been just missed out on our top 6 here. Liam, I believe this is someone that you were more bullish on.
I was more bullish on, but I probably did. I did those rankings before we saw the Carlton and Brisbane game. I think that it comes down to her consistently having a role in the midfield, and that's a pretty consistent thread in our kind of top 6. We've massively bumped up Georgia Stathis and Heath because of their midfield roles. I think that Brie Conan's maybe 30-40% CBAs are enough to have her sitting around that top 6 mark. She, funnily enough, she was not only the leading scorer for Brisbane against Carlton in another just bizarre game, but also scored, I think, nearly 30 points in the final quarter, playing nearly exclusively in defence. I do wonder what her role is going to hold for the future, but for now it appears to be play some time in the midfield, and then if they're getting beaten, go into defence, which in terms of switches to happen, I much prefer that than she goes and plays forward when they're being beaten badly, because it may never get to her. It was because Carlton were continuing to move the ball into D50, she was still able to score a 73.
I mean, yeah, the position does look strong. I guess maybe Cambridge McCormick is someone that we're putting in the top 5, who's currently ranked 4th. But Jono, you, on account of probably trading her out, you haven't put her in your top 5. Talk us through what we've all got wrong, clearly, about Cambridge.
Whack! Backhand across the face.
No. Look, there's a lot of salt for sure in the not picking McCormick, and I do think that this is an interesting top section, because I think the first few are quite clear, but after that you could probably throw a blanket over about 12 players who are all going to average around that 70 mark, and McCormick is certainly in the conversation for averaging over that. So I don't hate the pick. I think McCormick is one who can score quickly in quarters. I was really worried in the last couple of rounds that she wasn't scoring in the first halves, and that was concerning me. But that was a full and complete game. She was tackling like something I've not seen this season. And when they threw her forward, she was also damaging, which is a little bit of a concern from my end. But overall, I think McCormick is one that I definitely considered putting in that last spot.
Is she possibly the only defender that would lead their team in freeze 4 for holding the ball? Where they're the tallest player in their team. Like, she's the tallest player currently playing every week for GWS. Tackling is a menace in a way that I did not expect. Incredible. I loved every moment of it. But also shows that, like, classic, someone only has, like, 1.5 really good quarters where they score really well, and it's tipping on the balance of, well, they might just have a game where they have no good quarters, or they may actually just be able to play having those massive quarters every time.
Yeah, I think another one of my concerns was that, they'd been winning the inside 50 count and the ball hadn't been coming in as often. But in that last, there was 40 inside 50s by Adelaide, and it means that McCormick was getting involved very, very regularly. And I think with players like Parker being injured, I think that might be a consistent thread for a lot of the season.
Yes, and actually, Jono, I have a second question for you, which is, with Shelley Heath devastatingly injured from today's game for her heart, which is a bit concerning, you've currently ranked her second. I've also ranked her second. I think she's in Liam's top 5 as well. With her potentially, let's just hypothetically say, missing the season, that means that your number 6 player, Charlie Thomas, gets bumped up. Charlie Thomas, we can see, is currently not in the top number of defenders. I think she's a little bit further down there at 16th. That's right. What have we not yet seen from Charlie Thomas that would boost her up?
Well, it's not so much that we haven't seen it. We haven't seen it this season, but I think what she's done over the last couple of years has been incredibly impressive, and she showed it in fits and bursts. So take that second round against Essendon, she only scored a 72, but I'm pretty sure she was on 68 at three-quarter time. Like, she's a player that can score very, very well. My main concern for having her right at the bottom as opposed to any higher in the top 5 is just that in that game against St Kilda, she was thrown forward in that last quarter and to pretty good effect, which was a bit concerning. That's not the role I want to see her playing in. I think the fixture is going to get a little bit tougher for West Coast going forward, and I presume that Thomas will be back there and will be taking kickouts, will be impacting quite heavily. So I think really this is sort of a legacy pick of someone we know has done it in the past, and I think will be thereabouts come the end of the year.
Yes, I agree. Anything else to add?
Mid's time.
Okay, midfielders. So we've got Ash Riddell, fully aligned on the first ones here, really. Top is Ash Riddell. Then we've got Ebony Marinoff, Jasmine Garner, Laura Gardiner, Kiara Bowers, and then Britt Benici as number 6. So starting off with you then, Will. Kiara Bowers, currently ranked 11th, but we're saying she's top 5. However, your top 5 did not include Bowers. What do you think's going on there?
Yeah, I just think the way the game's going at the moment, less stoppages, less tackles available. Only had 4 tackles this week for Bowers, which is incredibly low. I think that Bowers is still definitely going to be a great scoring player, will average over 100, but I just think there's going to be 6 or 7 players ahead.
I definitely think it's interesting that Bowers was poorer in that second half, because I agree, like, she didn't look herself, but I also feel like she was playing a more defensive role on Ash Riddell, which often meant, and like playing on Riddell, you watch her, she often sits at that perfect one handball out. She's got a really innate sense for which side a handball is going to come out from. And I feel like that means that Turbo is again too often like second to the ball, to that contest for the tackle. I wonder if that was just that was just a feeling like it had to be like that for one game. Like, thankfully for Freo, they're not going to play North every week. So I think she's going to improve from that, pretty average 71. I, again, did my rankings before seeing that game, so I probably would have bumped her down a little bit based on that, but I still think 100 average is there. Yeah,
and I think Bowers is probably just a victim of the standards we've seen from her in previous seasons in this case, really, because I do think that 100 average is very easy for Bowers to maintain, but if you're talking about, top 6 where the top 6 are averaging 105 plus, that's where I've probably thought I think there are players that will probably drop down from what they're currently averaging, but will still average that slight bit higher.
Yeah, well, speaking of 105, Taylor Hanks is currently ranked 3rd after a slower 105 this week, getting 125 and 126 in the first 2 weeks. She's not someone that's made it on our top 6 at all. And I think it's, although Melbourne, have that easier fixture and she's shown really good prominence in the first few weeks, one thing I'm a little bit more concerned about is potentially the impact of Kate Hoare.
Yeah, one of the things that actually does worry me about Tyler Hanks is that teammates in the midfield are going down like flies at the moment. If Shelley Heath is, missing games with that unfortunate heart injury, we know that the Purcell's going to be missing the rest of the year. Yes, Kate Hoare might have to go in there, but it also means that if there are teams that are putting on a tag, it all of a sudden becomes a lot simpler because you've just got Tyler Hanks in that midfield and Kate Hoare maybe, flitting up forward a bit, but otherwise Tyler Hanks is the person to stop. And that's probably the thing that kept Hanks out of my top 6. I still think, again, 100 average should be fairly straightforward for a player of Tyler Hanks' quality, but there are some question marks there.
I think the other question mark here is she's probably got more to prove to show that this 100-plus average is sustainable, given we've seen some high scores from her in the past, but she's pretty consistently been a high 70s averaging player, whereas everyone else that we've kind of got in there has probably had consistent seasons pushing above that. So even someone like Britt Bonici, who has been a massive, I think, and the same as Hanks, a massive beneficiary from these rule changes, being really good exponents of inside-outside midfield work in the Ash Riddell mould, I do think that everyone else has had at least half a season where they've been 100 plus. We've not seen it from Hanks yet. She'd be the next player I would be ranking because I think she's looked spectacular.
Yeah, just kind of need to see it first.
I just have some trust issues so far. But I can't deny that she's been incredible. And if you've started her, like, power to you, you're probably ranked very, very highly at the moment.
Jono, we've all aligned on the Ash Riddell sitting above Ebony Marinoff. Is this something that you, like, obviously Ash Riddell is currently first by a mile with her average of 134.7. How close do you think these two will come, given that she's currently about 20 points above Noffy's average?
Yeah, it's strange to think that Marinoff is not going to be the top scorer going from here, but I do think that this new sort of the rule changes, the way that the game is being played, where it's a bit quicker, this is all favouring Ash Riddell, who is, I would assume, the fittest player in the comp. So I think this is something that's going to keep Riddell scoring quite high. The only concern that I have is if Garner goes down, Ash Riddell's tag, it's the easiest decision to make. The fact that she had Kiara Bowers following her in the second half and still scored massively, how effective are these tags actually going to be? I think Ash Riddell is probably going to work through it enough that I still think that she's a good chance to be the highest scorer from here going forward. It really depends on Garner's fitness.
I also feel like the Garner going down helps to offset the potential for run with rolls, because I don't want to kind of overstate. Like Bowers it's not a hard tag, as what's her name, Beck Beeson had done for a lot of the game against Marinoff, but Riddell's game time is going to get boosted, because that's often the consistent struggle. And it's one of the things that Darren Crocker has mastered, is keeping all of his midfielders on the ground for the right amount of time, consistently rotating through those CBAs, always getting the time that they need to make an impact. Garner going down means that someone like Riddell, who immediately steps up, if Garner is out for a while, Riddell immediately steps up as the most experienced midfielder, the fittest midfielder in their team, and someone who goes from having the odd game where she sits at 75 to 79% time on ground to, I think, more consistently hitting that mid-80 mark, and given her points per minute scoring capabilities, she has enough to sit above Noffy for the rest of the year.
I do love to see it. That was one of my, it's a season too late, but my hot take from last season was Riddell will outscore Garner. I mean, Garner going down with an injury kind of does help that
That's
too.
going to help.
In a grim way. Okay, I mean, that seems pretty aligned to me for the midfielders. Anything else you want to chuck in?
I just wanted to give a shout out to someone that I had put in it right at the end of my rankings, and that's G. Nanscorn. Again, we're seeing the same type of midfielder do really well. It's not someone that relies purely on tackles. They're really quick in that first 2 or 3 meters away from stoppage, particularly when the ball hits the ground and it's fumbling around. Jean Adscorn is a massive exponent of that and has looked excellent, has had 100 plus scores every week, is now the better scorer than Maddie Prasparkas. And again, she sits as the second most important player to tag at Essendon every single week that Maddie is playing.
And I think that this kind of speaks to the, as you say, Liam, the way the new game is playing. It's really benefiting the players that are quick thinkers, the ones that react quickly, get out into space quickly. You look at like Riddell, Tyler Hanks, Benici, and of course Nanscorn. They're players that, yes, they can do the tough in and under stuff, but as soon as the ball gets out into space, they're off. And those are the sorts of players that are really benefiting from these new rules.
Yes. Well, let's quickly whip around the rucks then. So
Whip around the works.
Whip around the rucks.
Mel, are you making fun of your own lisp?
Yes, I am. Thank you. Thank you, Liam, for noticing. So the current ranks, the current ranks are pretty much in line with what we predicted from the preseason. We've got Mim Strom miles ahead of anyone else at 97. And then currently Matilda Schultz is in second place on the ranks with an 88.7, followed very closely by Ali Morfitt with an 88.3. And we are also somewhat aligned on the top two here that we expect to stay. Mim Strom, all can see that one locking in. There's no way anyone's knocking her off her almost 100-point average podium up there. But then a little bit of a disagreement between who we think is coming in second. 2-2 for Lucy Wales and Ali Morfitt. Interestingly, none of us have picked Schultz after her massive 134-point game. I know Liam already has Schultz and was very much looking forward to that matchup against Gold Coast there. But Jono, I believe this was someone you were thinking of trading in?
Not someone I was thinking of trading in, but someone I briefly had in that second spot. But I ended up talking myself out of it for basically these big scores that we've seen in the last couple of rounds. I'm just not sure that the proof of the high scoring continuing is there, because when you look at the opponents that they've had, I think against Gold Coast we're talking about a second game ruck. And also, when Schultz was rotating forward, the reason that she was kicking goals is because she's amazing. But also, we saw Charlotte Wilson go down early in the game with injury. We saw Mira Gervin go down early in the game with injury. These are things that, Gemma Houghton was scoring very well, so all the attention was directed there. Schultz had free reign to do what she wanted. So it was a very impressive game. But in the only game that I would say she's come up against the top tier ruck, that was round 1 against Mim Strom, and she only put up a 48. So obviously Mim Strom is leagues ahead of most other rucks in terms of difficulty to play against. But I haven't seen it against another ruck, this sort of high 80, 90 scoring. And until she does that, I'm not convinced that she should be second in our rankings.
So I agree with you, just quickly on Schultz. I agree with you. That's why she wasn't there. I think that 49 is the reason why she kind of sits at 3 or 4 for me. But if you're looking for a trade target, it goes up against West Coast, Melbourne, Geelong, St Kilda in the next month. 3 of those matchups, I would say, are ideal for Strom.
It's a strong matchup, I'll say that.
Not Strom, Schultz. Schultz, what am I talking about?
I was going to say, I thought we were talking about Schultz, but okay.
I've got Strom on the brain. She just dominates she's just so bloody consistent.
Oh, I just wanted to say I picked Ali Morford because I watched Ali Morford play one of the best games I've ever seen from a ruck down at Geelong. It was bloody impressive. And the only reason it wasn't the best performance from a ruck this week was because Matilda Scholes played Gold Coast. So I think both of them are fantastic players and will continue to score really, really well. And there's one other ruck that we need to talk about, of course, which is Lucy Wales, who fits into the similar batch.
Yes. Jono, you put Lucy Wales as your number 2 ruck.
Yeah, I can't believe just how impactful she is. I was really worried early in the match because Ellie Simmons was getting a lot of ruck time. I think in that first quarter, Lucy Wales was only on the ground for about 50% of the game. So I was really worried that her scoring was going to be impacted. But yet again, she's just come through with a massive second half where she's taking marks, match-saving tackles. I think she was the only player on the Hawks team that was really getting any sort of clearance going. We were being smacked all game, but she really held us up there. So I think that Lucy Wales is going to continue to impact, and she's done it against 3 tough opponents so far. So I think that hopefully they can keep it going for the rest of the season and keep the Hawks in the hunt.
Yeah, I think the other thing with that game was definitely the number of stoppages, repeat stoppages we kind of saw in that second half. Wales has a 45-point third quarter, and then even in the first quarter, like Alice Edmonds had a massive game. I'm pretty sure that Edmonds, who's someone we've not ranked, but in this game against Hawthorn, she had 1 disposal at halftime, and her fantasy score was 45.
It's just a little ridiculous on the tackling front.
Which, if I was better at kind of some of the stats coding, I would try and find out that is the highest score in a half by a player with 1 disposal. But I it intuitively feels like it's going to be bloody hard to beat.
Well, I mean, speaking of that, we did put a bookmark in this idea that we were going to talk about the more established rucks and why they aren't contenders, being like in Edmonds, Harrington, Hickey, etc. We've once again not put any of them in our top 2 to 3 players, although we do see Alice Edmonds currently ranked 5th with that 87.7. Do we just think that she's going to be great but not quite as great as the rest? Because that's kind of what I'm leading to. I think she's going to continuously score great scores, but I just think there's going to be a big headroom above in terms of consistency and high scores for Mim Strom, Lucy Wales, and Ali Morford's not quite so consistent, 50s to 100 plus, but will average net higher.
Yeah, I think that's the thing for me. I think a player like Edmonds, Brown, Harrington, they're going to score pretty consistently between sort of 80 and 100 every week. They just aren't going to as regularly score those massive scores that we've seen unless they do come up against the Gold Coast, who knows. But yeah, I think the upside of players like Schultz and Morford is just so high compared to these consistent, very good players, but not quite, top 3 in terms of what they can do.
Yes. And so over to the forwards then. We've ranked our top 5 plus 1 as Sally Goldsworthy, Chloe Malloy, Montana Ham, Ashley Woodland, Tani Evans, and then Eden Zanker. All aligned on the top 4, except we've had 2 votes each for Tani Evans and Eden Zanker. Jono, you haven't voted for Evans here.
Yeah, so I think the top 4, I'm glad we're all in agreement on that because they do seem far more consistent. It's after that I think it becomes quite a difficult one to pick that last couple positions. Tani Evans is one where, we're talking in that Crows game about how we think the inside 50 count is going to be one way. And Tani Evans, as good as a player as they are, is going to be given a lot of attention every time that ball is going forward. I think it's unbelievable that they've managed to score as well as they have, given the amount of ball coming their way. I'm really worried about the sustainability of it, but geez, they're looking very impressive.
For me, I think it comes down to her running power. Up until a couple of years ago, she held the record for the 2K time trial at the draft combine. We're kind of seeing how high up the ground she's able to get, still has that speed once the ball hits the ground to lay some tackles. and has a beautiful pair of hands and a beautiful kick. It is part of the reason why I think she can consistently hit the scoreboard. I think if we're talking in the mould of forward that she plays in, it is very Aisling Maloney-esque in the way that she's able to get super high up the ground and still be able to turn her opponent around and get the ball inside 50. So that's why I think even with GWS's relative, scoring ineptitude, she's still going to be able to someone who pushes that 70 that we kind of see as the cap for key forwards pretty typically in AFLW fantasy.
Another one that had us divided was Eden Zanker. And the reason I haven't put her in is kind of a little bit of what we saw today. Really impactful quarters where she's absolutely racking it up, and everyone wishes they had her on her side, and then sits full forward and doesn't really do too much for a little bit after that. I think it has while it might provide a consistent score at the end of it, the quarter-to-quarter variance is quite large here. Do you guys all have Zanker?
I have Zanker.
I don't have Zanker.
Okay. Someone talk about Zanker.
I was just going to say the thing that supplements her low scoring and the reason why she's able to be someone who ranks highly is that 20% CBAs that she gets. And if we continue to see Melbourne's injuries, she's going to continue to get them.
As a mid as well. Not just as a ruck, as a mid.
Oh, yeah, 100%. And I can't believe I'm doing this. This is harkening back to the first season we ever played, where we're like, Eden Zanker is somehow a midfielder. This doesn't make sense with her size and shape, but
nowadays
this
that's
is the
just
best
normal.
we've seen her play in the midfield. And she's just supplementing it with just a couple of hand passes, a few tackles in those quieter quarters to really save it from being a 50. Consistently going to be able to hit those, I reckon, 70s, 65 to 80, probably her range week to week.
I'm really curious to see how much that midfield role keeps up, because I feel like in the last couple of weeks, we've seen players go down early in the match for Melbourne, and they're kind of going, well, these are the resources we have. Who are we going to put in there? And I think Zanker's a good enough player that she will continue to get some time. I'm just not sure it's going to be as much as we've seen.
I'm completely with you. I think the only reason why it might be a little bit more sustainable is that she did play some midfield time in the second halves of both the match simulation and the practice match. So I went and watched Zanker play Hawthorn at the match sim down at Casey Fields. And there was just a couple of CBAs in there, just enough for it to be okay. Can I ask a question, though? Ash Woodland was good on the weekend, a 71, but it probably wasn't what I was expecting. Do we think that Port Adelaide's game style might mean that the player that we really want to have consistent 70-plus scores is probably going to have a few down weeks just because of how often she gets kicked over the top of? She runs a very central up and down the middle of the ground role, playing midfield or forward, and Port Adelaide love to just hoof it long no matter which direction it goes in. Into
Jenna Horton's hands, who had a ripper.
I joked about trading in Gemma Horton this week on air. And she was 500k or something, and that was the play, apparently. Who knew she was going to kick 5, but...
4 goals, 5, in fact.
I think the thing that I thought was interesting was her role at stoppage was sort of that defensive side stopper, which surprised me because I would have thought as a forward in the past that she'd be coming forward off it. But the ball was just coming out the wrong side of stoppage so often, given that dominance that Schultz was having. So I think in the tougher matchups, like against North and against Freo a little earlier, I think those are the ones where she was getting more of the ball. So I suppose it depends on how you think Port Adelaide's going to go over the next few rounds.
So St Kilda will be
I think you were actually pretty close to what the thing for me was, Jono, was that this week, in terms of actually getting the ball, Woodland's statistics were pretty similar. She had the exact same amount of disposals in the exact same way as last week against North. 12 kicks, 2 handballs. But slightly less tackles, 4 tackles this week, less marks, 2 marks, which I think just kind of speaks to the fact that Port were just walking it out of there for most of the time. They don't really need to do as much defending. They don't need to do as much sort of hitting up because they're just moving it forward and scoring.
I do think a positive as well for Woodland was, in a shock twist, Abby Dowrick was playing forward at times at the beginning of a couple of quarters. So it sounds like Port Adelaide, or seems like Port Adelaide is going to continue to shift those half-forward midfield roles probably more than I was expecting.
Talking of not expecting, Imogen Barnett is currently ranked 4th and in the forwards with a 77.7, just slightly above Ash Woodland, who's on 76.7. She is not someone that's currently made it in our top 6, but I believe, Will, she got your vote.
Yeah.
Tell us about Imogen Barnett. I'm also spewing because I was going to pick her up at one stage and I didn't, and I'm like,
yeah,
that's
same.
such a good score.
Playing full-time ruck basically is the answer, and is one of those rucks that likes to follow up, likes to tackle, likes to get the clearances, kind of like the role that we know Matilda Schultz does really well. I think she has had so many injury issues in her time at Collingwood that now that we're actually seeing why they've been wanting to have her as that first ruck for so long.
She would have been my 7th ranked forward. Honestly, it's just the fact that she has North this week that will mean she will have a brutally tough time. Given she also relies on intercepts to take a lot of her marks. I think it was like more than half of her marks were intercept marks when I kind of looked at the stats. I haven't looked at them for this week, but that's probably the main reason that she doesn't sit higher, even though I do think she far outperformed what she was priced at. She was someone I looked at starting the preseason. I'm regretting that choice now. But it's just like, I'm like in the forward line, I think that you throw a blanket over 5 through about 9. And I think for me, that's why Barnett just falls out.
She's a lowly owned 30-year-old that plays for Collingwood. I'm surprised she's not already in your side, Will.
Well, I don't have any Collingwood players other than Ash Centra, so I take umbrage to that.
It's one of your better ones, Mel.
Oh, okay, quick laugh.
So
break
anyway,
there.
this week I'm trading in Imogen Barnett, and
Yep, for North, perfect.
Yep, can't see anything wrong with it.
Excellent. Well, that wraps up our Sweet 16, which is a good chat. I really like that format. Worked well for discussion, although we did chat for about 30 minutes on it. So let's move over to Dr. Will's injury report. Had some absolute shockers this week. So for the only doctor on the podcast, a PhD in, I want to say, virology, could be wrong.
Viral immunology, but yes.
Great. Why don't you take us through your assessment of these injuries that we see today?
So yeah, I'm going to thank Jono for the stitch up on this one. But yeah, some big key injuries this week. I'm also going to put a disclaimer. I am not a qualified medical doctor, so please don't take my medical advice as fact. Key injuries this week. I mean, the big one is obviously Jas Garner. It's ruined my weekend. It's ruined my week. It's probably ruined my year. Jas Garner, ankle injury in a marking contest, 28% owned. The big thing is going to be whether she plays next week. You'd think coming up against Collingwood, and given she was in quite a bit of pain, iced up after the game, you'd expect that she's going to be missing at least one game, so likely to be a must-trade there.
My question to you, Will, if you had to go from Jas Garner to someone, I'm assuming a lot of people will have Ash Riddell as their number one trade target, but assuming they already have them, where do you go next?
Well, I am going to Ash Riddell, but if you don't have Ash Riddell, I think the obvious thing to do is use your utility to get Imogen Barnett. And if you aren't planning on doing that, I think there's several decent options you can go for. I think, again, a big part of it comes down to who you've already got, but I'd normally say Britt Benici, but against North Melbourne, not an ideal matchup there. Laura Gardner, who has been a bit up and down, but we know how good Laura Gardner can be. I'm a big fan of Ella Roberts as well. Ella Roberts' best is about as good as any players, really. So I think there's definitely a few options. Tyler Hanks, even against Richmond, could be an interesting one as well. So if you don't have Riddell is clearly the obvious one. But if not, you can get a bit more creative, I think.
The good thing for Garner owners is that short of Marinoff, who is already 70% owned and only a fraction more expensive, Garner is more expensive than all of the other mids. So you can really have your pick at who you bring in there.
I do believe that is more expensive than everyone except Ash Riddell. So I've unfortunately had to pay up for Riddell.
No.
Yes.
Garner's 1.6, Riddell's 1.45.
That is...
Oh, Mel, you're using outdated
that is
information here.
not the...
You're using last week's information.
Has it not loaded?
No.
Garner's dropped to 1.42, whilst Riddell is
Bad
up at
news.
1.5.
Bad news, everyone that just
You
took
now
that
have to
advice.
pay. Yes. So that has been quite unfortunate for me, as I have just lost a fair bit of money from Jas Garner, which sucks because I was using her as a money saver. But yes, Jas Garner. But the other one we've talked a bit about already, Shelley Heath, heart issue. We don't know a huge amount about the severity or how bad that will be. Could be something that is just managed and which will play next week. Could be something that we won't see her again this year. But 18.6% owned, had been playing in the midfield, a pretty decent role. So definitely one to watch this week, but may need to be trade out. Again, plenty of decent options in that back line. We've to use the phrase that seems to have been our favourite this episode, we can throw a blanket over a whole lot of different players in that back line that you could trade Shelley Heath to. Emma Carney's just come back and is playing a pretty decent matchup in Collingwood this week if you're looking for someone like that. Ella Heads looked pretty good in the midfield. It really depends on who you've already got in your back line and how much you can get up to, because if you can afford, say, a Tilly Lucas-Rod or a Elizabeth Georgia-Stathis, why not? So those are some of the options you've got there.
The fact you've not mentioned Cambridge McCormick is a personal insult.
I'm assuming that everyone already has Cambridge McCormick, so...
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah.
Then we're
Well, I
fine.
can't go
Don't
straight
worry.
back now, can I? That'll just hurt.
For a very comparable price, Shelley Heath's at, if my browser has indeed refreshed, is at $7.57. Maeve Chaplin, $7.48, just a little bit less, and also looks really good. I mean, there was some injury concerns to start the season, but she's back, she's playing, she's fit. She's coming off 109 in that game, so I guess she did start a bit slow, but we were concerned about her injury and her time on ground. 90% time on ground, looked fantastic. She, if you've got that extra couple of K.
Yeah, not a bad shout at all. And if you do need to save a little bit of money, I think you got a fantastic option. 678K. Liam, who is it? That's right, it's Sarah Veria. Great pick.
Amazing.
Sarah Veria, who got thrown forward to try and tag, air quotes, Emma Carney in the fourth quarter and did not much.
No. So I would highly recommend it for everyone who wants a bit of a laugh, but if you're looking to score fantasy points, maybe not. A few other ones in the back line for... There was a bit of carnage in this Fremantle game as well, because Emma O'Driscoll was concussed, so will miss next week, almost 10% owned. I do believe Gabby O'Sullivan also had a bit of an ankle niggle as well, so a little bit to worry about there for Fremantle. And also in terms of the rookies, Emma McDonald has done a shoulder injury, which will be a bit of a concern for 14% of the competition who owns her, so she might be a rookie that you move onwards now. In terms of who, we're starting to get a bit thin on the ground for forward line rookies, or rookies in general, really. Hopefully you can utilize your utility and maybe pick up someone such as Sarah Greaves, who scored really well, though has gone up considerably in price. So you might have to get a bit creative once again to find some options to replace those lesser priced players.
No, that was a really good summary of our higher owned players that have copped an injury. There's a couple more injuries that we saw over the weekend as well to some of the lower owned players. Jono, you've got some thoughts on the injuries and who we could substitute with?
Yeah, well, I suppose I was looking at that Gold Coast backline, and I suppose if we're trying to look at players that are going to score well in the short term, I think Charlotte Wilson out, Mira Gervin out, that's going to be a real concern for the Gold Coast backline. I don't think they necessarily have a lot of players they can call on in reserves that'll be able to shut that down. We were already concerned about Gold Coast being scored massively on, so I'm looking at options playing the Gold Coast in the coming weeks.
So it is Tani Evans.
It is Tani Evans this week. This is the big difference between trade targets and the Sweet 16.
Liam, it actually is Cambridge McCormack for some reason.
Don't. I can't believe that in that clip that I shared from the preseason, I was like, God damn, she's the second coming of Tani Evans. She looks incredible. Tackle, holding the ball for a kick, beautiful kick inside 50. Please, Cam, don't play her forward. And she goes and plays forward in the last quarter after the best game of her career. God, just because they're playing well, you don't put them in the forward line.
Seems to be the recipe.
Another one that I've been looking at is Najwa Allen looked to have done her hamstring on the weekend. I'm not sure how serious that is or how much time she's going to miss. But in the short term, I think that means that Tilly Lucas-Rod and Jenna Richardson are going to be those distributors off halfback.
Smith.
It's going to be pretty exciting.
Tam Smith scored a
Tam
76.
Smith is she's always a bit.
Space buns are speaking to you, Will.
Tam Smith.
Alicia Eva also seemed to go down with a hamstring. The Giants midfield just seems to be copping it right now. I think that's good for the idea of Zali Goldsworthy staying more in the midfield because I think we saw a little bit more this past weekend against the Crows. I also think Sarah Howley is going to benefit massively. I'm not sure if that's a fantasy relevant name or not, but I was very impressed with her game on the weekend, playing in a similar role to what I expected Alicia Eva to be doing. And someone here has put down Sabs Frederick, and I didn't see who that was. Who put that down on the run sheet?
That was me. Late in the game, looked to be in quite a bit of discomfort with a knee or a lower leg sort of injury. Ended up staying on to try and push the Pies over the line, but that could be quite an interesting one. It may affect how they go with their forward setup and their ruck setup for Barnett, and yeah, not ideal for the Pies.
That's a very good point, Will, and maybe I probably should have pushed Barnett up, because if Sabs Frederick is out, even for a couple of weeks, I think Barnett becomes, like, she starts at all the CBAs and then Sabs sometimes rucks around the ground. Sabs out and that means then that Nell Morris-Dalton is a more important forward target and maybe just a pinch ruck. I think Barnett becomes a bigger point of difference, a bigger target if Sabs is out at all.
I was just going to say, was it the Richmond game where KB had done something to her hand and kept playing with one? Oh, actually, you know who we forgot to mention is Charlie Rowbottom. I was like, there was something else I was watching this weekend being like, I have to talk about this. Charlie Rowbottom.
It's kind of strange because Charlie Rowbottom's become a not fantasy relevant player this year, which is kind of wild.
Yeah.
She had her best scoring quarter of the year with a bung shoulder playing forward. She is a freak.
And she's
So
still
basically,
25% owned.
she should just continue to do that from the sounds of it. Definitely not. As a doctor, I don't recommend it. but yes, Charlie Rowbottom, the Gold Coast season's basically gone from bad to worse there. It's going to mean a lot more pressure on Lucy Single and Claudia Whitford, who came in, came out, probably going to have to come back in again now. It's tough times up on the Gold Coast at the moment.
It does open up a role for their best clearance mid now, though, Neve McLaughlin, who looked exceptional in the fourth quarter, playing in the midfield.
The exciting thing is that midfield role has given Neve McLaughlin her first tackle of the year against Port Adelaide.
Wow.
She's had 3 games, and that was her first tackle. So if that tackle role bumps up, oh boy.
It was her first tackle, but it was also her first free kick against. Apparently those come hand in hand these days, so you got to watch out for that as well.
I really hope that 1-for-1 ratio doesn't continue.
Yes.
Well, if it does, you get 1 point extra. So it's actually not a bad thing.
Oh, nice. So I think that might be all the impactful ones, which is a lot, but we will be keeping an eye out on injury reporting to see how many of these are actually impacting the games next week. Moving on to Believe It or Not, we once again had some huge pop scores, and do we think these are going to stick around? Should we be trading in to get them? I mean, someone's played silly buggers here and put 192 next to Ash Maloney, which would be a phenomenal score, and I think I would have heard about it. But Mash Maloney's 102.
Mash Maloney.
Masha.
Yep. Do we think that's staying?
I sure hope so. She looked really good against Sydney, and I think she'll be better for the run. I do want to throw in that, Geelong misses Chloe Shear. We need someone else up there to kick it to. But Maloney played really well.
Parry doesn't look healthy either.
No, Parry's clearly playing injured, basically been injured in both of the first 2 games, and is doing everything that she can to help up forward, but we really do need Chloe Shear back at the Cats. But till that happens, I think that Maloney is too good a player to not score well. Is that well going to go to 90 every week? I'm not entirely sure it will. So it's not someone I'd be trading into at this stage.
Devastatingly doesn't play Gold Coast.
Yes, that could have been good. And if it was 90 every week, they'd probably be in our top forwards. So that checks out. And Hatchard with a large 114, which is, a good score, but especially when put next to Noffy's 103. This is eking back to a few seasons ago when it was like Hatchard and Noffy switching high score each week. What do we think drove this, and is it sustainable? Is it just a Noffy downfall, perks of the rule change player style that is here to stay?
4 hit outs.
The 4 hit outs help. I think I'll put this one on the run sheet because Anne Hatchard had kind of fallen off the radar, had 2 60s to start the year, comes back with a 114. Did look kind of back to herself. I wouldn't be trading into it. The time on ground is relatively low, 78%, and had 8 kicks and 17 handballs, which is not ideal. But given that she is only $1 million, if you were going to have a dart throw at someone who has been an uber premium before, this would be where I'm looking. Just maybe not this week against Brisbane. Let that score bottom out. I wish we had break evens. Alas, we do not. But maybe let that bottom out. But I saw enough to put Anne Hatchard 100% back near the top of my viewing list just because she's so cheap at this stage. If she does it again, I feel like she might be back.
I think Hatchard leads a group of players where we've just got to keep our eyes on them because players like Ali Anderson have also dropped a few 100K. Greta Bodie's dropped a couple 100K. I think there's going to be a lot of players that in a few weeks, if we can start to see some consistent scoring again, there's some really great cheap options that we can upgrade to. But until I see it consistently, I think I'm a little bit hesitant.
Speaking of players that we were hesitant in, I was hesitant to bring in Tess Boyd. Given that Emma Carney was back, she then comes out, has a smashing second half, finishes on an 80, looks a very, very fluid halfback, very composed intercept marker. I think that she's a priority trade-in, but what do we think is a sustainable average for her? She's had now 2 70-plus scores to start her career. I don't think there's a world where you can drop her at all. Is it, if she's even somewhere in the 60s, she's a guaranteed trade-in this week, just given that she's still kind of sitting below. She's at 621K, so priced at a 50-odd average.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's the sort of thing, it's happened a couple of weeks in a row where Tess Boyd's gone massive in the last quarter, and she's not the only one at North. We can also see Libby Birch has had a couple good final quarters. I do think that in the end part of the matches, their defence is starting to get a lot more space. They're just taking clear marks, and they're kind of...
Chippy.
Yeah, getting a bit of the chippy because they don't, they're up by 100 points. What do they need to stress for?
Maeve Chaplin just scored 109 against Collingwood. That's who they play this week.
I tell you what, Liam, you've actually just convinced me I am trading in Tessa Boyd this week.
I will note that Maeve Chaplin had 12 tackles on her way. I don't think Tess Boyd is that sort of a player. But it's an interesting
Tess Boyd
idea.
could have 12 marks, though.
That is a very realistic shout, yeah. Yeah, I don't think there's a world where I'm not putting Tess Boyd on my field this week. That's for sure.
Yeah, I'm not making a mistake on which rookie to field this week. Watch me do it.
So do you three already have Tess Boyd?
I don't. I'm trading her in this week.
I'm trying to trade her in.
Yeah. I see. Another one who had a pop score, Dana Finn's 118. Absolutely huge.
Was everywhere.
I did not get to watch that game. What was the difference?
Marking absolutely everything.
Love it.
Just sort of everywhere in that half back line, really. Like whenever there was a intercept against the Lions, whenever they were moving it out of the back line, the Blues were getting it through Dana Finn. She just was everywhere.
And
forward.
I think there was just like an Irish handshake with Ola Dwyer at the beginning of the game that says, yep, we'll stand next to each other after every goal. And then you go off and do your thing and I'll go off and do mine. That's what it kind of felt like. There was not much defensive accountability. Finn wasn't like a tackling menace. But as you said, well, she was really good at dropping deep, had some great runs to kind of cut off some kind of forward entries from Brisbane, was clearly the best mark for
10 marks.
10 marks, and then also kicked a beautiful goal on her left. So, yeah, what's not to love? I don't think it's sustainable, though. Like, it is a factor of, like, wing scoring, but I just thought it was spectacular. Like, it's a disappointing one where it's a midfield player, and I think we're searching for superstars in the midfield, and I don't think that's Dana Finn. If she had any other position, I would have seen that performance and gone, I've got to get her. She looked great.
Awesome. A couple of others we've got here. Tess Craven's 100, Carly Ramos's 109, Aaron Fitzpatrick's 109. Anything jumping out at you guys?
Tess Craven's forward status. That's what's intriguing
makes it interesting.
me.
I thought Ramos was fantastic, but as a midfielder, I'm not.
I think we have to chalk that one up as a miss. Like, had the role in the preseason, scored okay. I probably just didn't trust that she was going to stay in the midfield as much as she has.
You're not trading into her at this stage would be the way I'd be looking at it. But yeah, Tess Craven's an interesting one if you want something a bit more unique. Yaz Dersma's looked really solid as a cheaper defender as well. I think we've got plenty of potential options though.
Love it. And then over on the rookies, some of the cheaper players here, we saw Greaves put up a 78. So the Greaves fan club is well and truly worth it. That was a fantastic performance. Ellie Simmons with a 49 and Paige Scott with a 63. I do love to see Paige Scott doing well. And what an entertaining footballer they are to watch. Just every time there's a free against or just something that gets called hands in the air with outrage, Paige Scott's entertainment value is a good reason to put them in your side alone. But maybe for a fantasy perspective, is anyone seriously considering Greaves as a trade-in target?
Yeah.
I thought about it, but she's almost too expensive now. She's almost 500k.
And after only one game as well.
Yeah. I thought they were phenomenal. And it was the sort of role that I can see when they had the ball in their hands, they created for Richmond, which is something they sorely lacked in those first two rounds. So I think they're going to do everything they can to keep her in the team, to keep her involved in the game. I think she looks fantastic and will be a big price riser over the coming weeks.
I think that if Richmond are going to remain competitive in the next month, it's going to be by slightly demonconifying their midfield and pushing more ball through Mackenzie and Greaves. And we already saw the beginning of that. A, in Greaves being selected, and then B, Ellie Mackenzie dropping super deep, took a couple of kick-ins. I think credit to Ryan Ferguson, after a crap game plan 2 weeks in a row, 2 bad losses, comes out and identifies the main issue being their ball movement by foot, and Greaves and Mackenzie were key to remaining competitive in conditions that were really bad as well for high mark styles, just given how humid it was in Darwin. I expect Greaves to be someone who can really score well, given she has some elite scoring pedigree at Coates League level.
Love it. Well, these good rookie options bode well for when we talk about our trade plans shortly. But first, Liam, do you want to give us a quick overview of the Captain's Corner?
Yes.
And is it just Riddell?
At the moment, yes, it's probably going to be Ash Riddell it'll be Ash Riddell at number 1. I again think that it's tough. Well, at the moment, it's tough to go against Tyler Hanks, and given we've just seen Jean Nanscorn score her best score of the season against Richmond, I think that's going to be really, really good. Again, I think Noffy is someone that will actually probably benefit from Brisbane. I expect Brisbane will be looking to really crack in hard, and it's in the games where they do crack in hard that Noffy can really get to work on her tackling efforts. It was a bit wide open and really windy against GWS. I think that's why her score was a little bit lower. In terms of other players, I think that Laura Gardner, Sophia Hurley, Chloe Malloy, Montana Ham, if Fremantle are as bad as they've been in the last 2 weeks in allowing ball to move extremely freely in transition, I would expect all of them to score well. I think Gardner's the number 1 candidate out of that group. But I do expect at least one of them to go 105, 110 plus this week. But I haven't actually done my full rankings. Like, we're only on Sunday night. Unfortunately, I haven't got it prepped at this stage. Probably want to see some injuries, see how the week pans out. But you'll definitely be able to read my top 5 in Fantasy Fix this week, which comes out on a Wednesday morning.
Sounds good. In terms of trade targets, Jono, Ash Riddell on your mind?
Yeah, I've got 2 sets of trade plans, and they're both kind of silly. One is...
The best kind of trade plan.
The one that's really tempting me is I'm a little concerned about Shelley Heath, and if I get rid of Shelley Heath and I get rid of Zippy Fish, there's a world where I can bring in Ash Riddell and keep Ebony Marinoff. That feels wonderful. That feels really, really good to me. I think Zippy Fish has already made, nearly 600,000. I'm not sure how much longer I can keep relying on a rookie to score 90 in my team. And if I can get Ash Riddell from her, then I think that's a massive win. And it allows me to bring Tess Boyd on field. So that's probably where I'm going to go. But there's a world where I make safer trades and just go Sheath over to an Emma Carney and make sure that I get in the right players like Sierra Greaves.
Sheath, did you say?
Yep. Sheath. The quick way of saying Shelley Heath. Yeah.
The sheath. And who's the sword?
Yet to be seen. Give me a few more weeks.
Yes, I also need to focus on my back line. I think Serene Watson is time to skedaddle, and I was going to have O'Sheath. O'Sheath and O'Sword. You've got it in my head. It's late on a Sunday and my brain has turned to mush. But I was going to trade out O'Shea, thinking that Carney being back would dampen her scoring a bit. But nope, she can stick around another week for me. But yeah, I think it's going to be Watson out. Good timing that Tess Boyd is a good trade-in target. And I'd love to go up to TLR, but I think I need to be realistic here and deal with my ruck situation as a priority. As much as I'd like to joke about upgrading my defenders, I think I need to sort out my 3 rookie rucks and just have a longer-term strategy than trading in a 4th one this week. So hopefully get a proper ruck that I can leave on field, maybe a Lucy Wales, and then kind of set and forget there. So I might have to sacrifice some of these other best 21s we've been talking about. Will, what about you? Just banging your head against a wall, or...?
Yeah, that's the plan. Unrelated to fantasy, I just do that every week. Yeah, basically trading out Ash Riddell is going to be my number 1 target to get rid of Jas Garner, assuming that Garner's not going to be playing this week. Currently, I have gone for Tessa Boyd in, and I've gone also for Taylor Harris out to make a crap load of money for next week. Because unfortunately, no matter how I tried to spin my trades, I was about 50k off getting an actually good ruck. So next week, I'm going to let my rookie rucks Dunlop and Murphy battle it out against each other specifically. And then I will trade whichever one I can to someone who's actually good.
Nice, good plan. And what about you, Jono? Nope. What about you, Liam?
What about you, Jono?
How are you?
Why don't you tell us your trade plans again? More Sheath.
Yeah, the number 1 trade out priority for me is Georgia Patrikios. Now, there are 2 sets of trade plans as me as well. A lot of it hinges on how long Jas Garner is going to be out for. If it's long term, the player I've got my eye on is Ailish Sheeran, who scored about 80 points after Garner went down. However, there is a safer option, and that for me is Kate Hoare, just again with Melbourne's run and her role. And then I'll be looking to do some rookie swaps to bring in Tessa Boyd and Sierra Greaves. There'll have to be, in terms of my outs, I think Rashid really underwhelmed I think since Chelsea Randall's come back in. She also looked gassed at the end of that game. But in terms of the other options that are going out, I'm not 100% sure, not locked in. But yeah, a lot of it is going to be about trying to fix up Georgia Patrikios. There's also a world where I just bring in Zippy Fish for a week and use a bunch of cash elsewhere or hold over some cash for next week.
What do you mean bring in Zippy Fish onto your field?
Onto my field, yeah.
Oh, right.
Take Patrikios down to a rookie.
Trade her in, just because you can this time.
Just trade her in twice. It's great playing, guys.
Could do worse than having 2 Zippy Fish, let's be honest.
If I end up trading out Zippy Fish, she'll probably score 107. So good round to have her on field.
Beautiful. Well, let me know, and then I'll make my trades based on what you do. Actually, that being said, I've traded out a 150. Johnny, you've traded out a 107. Mel and Will, which one of you is going to trade out the 100-plus score this week? Is Zoe Basenko going to score 98,000 points this week, Mel?
On account of her making me $0, she's still at 300k because she had to make up for her shocker. So she's not the one I'm going to be cashing out of. So
I mean, I'm the one that's
assured.
cashing out. I'm the one that's cashing out Taylor Harris against Richmond.
117,
So,
locked and
117.
loaded.
I'm backing Laura Stone to keep up a good scoring because I brought her in last minute. I was literally trying to figure out my trades with 5 minutes to go because I was worried about West Coast inexplicably bringing in Sarah Lakai, which ruined my Liz McGrath plans. So that worked out quite well because McGrath actually ended up scoring less than, I'm pretty sure, less than Dunlop, but more than Murphy, but all of them scored within 3 points of each other. So it didn't really matter in the end. But yes, Laura Stone. I'm hoping that Laura Stone continues her run of 60 scores and I don't miss out on 117 from Taylor Harris.
that would be good. Trades have only also been open for pretty much since we started recording. I think we started just as trades unlocked, so this will take a little bit of time to digest. Unfortunately, I can't make and lock in my trade plans during this call like I normally do. We'll have to revisit those tomorrow. But good chat, and we'll chat to you all later on the spaces, if not next week. Although I will be absent. So, Liam, welcome to the host.
Welcome to a 2 hour and 14-minute episode as we go through a blow-by-blow game report on what St Kilda have made mistakes with this week.
It's also going to just have Liam. Jono and I will be
It's
there.
a monologue.
We're not going to say much.
You're just a choir in the background,
Oh,
echoing
preach,
yes
Liam,
and
preach
no.
it. Yeah.
Oh, excellent. Well, chat to you all later. Bye.
See ya.
Yeah.
Bye.